Do you still think that it's acceptable to share your bed with children?
Of course. Of course. Why not? If you're going to be a pedophile.
He was the most famous human being on the planet. He sold hundreds of millions of records. He made the world stop and watch every time he moved. But behind the moonwalk, behind the glittering glove, behind the screaming crowds, was a life that the world could never fully understand. And the more people looked, the more disturbing the questions became. Was Michael Jackson a genius who was destroyed by fame? Or was there something darker hiding beneath the surface? This is not a story about his music. This is the story of everything they don't play on the radio. For most of the 1980s, Michael Jackson was untouchable, the biggest star alive. But then something began to change. Not just in how he acted, in how he looked. Year after year, his face was shifting, his skin was getting lighter, his nose was growing thinner and smaller. The world noticed, and the world could not stop talking about it. Michael said he had a skin condition called vitiligo, a real medical disease that destroys skin pigmentation. His doctors confirmed it, but millions of people did not believe him. They said he was trying to erase himself, to become someone different, to run away from who he was. The tabloids were brutal. The mockery was relentless. Every new photograph became a headline. But what if he was telling the truth? What if a man who suffered from a real disease was being laughed at by the entire world? The truth was far more complicated than anyone wanted to admit. Then came Neverland Ranch. And this is where things got truly strange. In the early 1990s, Michael built a private fantasy world on his estate in California. A full amusement park, a private zoo, a movie theater, a place designed entirely for children to come and play. He said it was the childhood he never had, taken from him by years of performing before he could even grow up. He invited sick children, underprivileged children, children who had never experienced joy like this. To many people, it seemed like an act of pure generosity. But to others, it raised a very different question. Why was the most famous adult in the world spending so much time with children? Why were young boys sleeping in his bedroom? Michael's answer was simple and direct. He said it was innocent. He said sharing his bed with a child was a beautiful, loving thing, and that people with dark minds were the ones making it something ugly. But that was only the beginning. In 1993, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler made an accusation that detonated like a bomb across the entire world. He claimed that Michael Jackson had sexually abused him. The media exploded. The world turned. Overnight, the king of pop became the most investigated man on earth. Police searched Neverland. A grand jury was called. Michael was stripped and photographed so investigators could compare his body to the boy's description. Think about that for a moment. The most famous man alive, being photographed like a criminal. Michael denied everything. He said it was a conspiracy. He said the boy's father, Evan Chandler, had tried to extort money from him first, demanding millions of dollars before the accusations were made public. Phone recordings emerged that seemed to support this, with Evan Chandler speaking about destroying Michael if he didn't get what he wanted. But the damage was done. The world had already decided what it believed. The case never went to trial. A civil settlement was reached for an amount reported to be around $23 million. Michael said paying the money was purely to stop the pain, to end the nightmare, not because he was guilty. Many of his supporters agreed. Many of his critics said only a guilty man pays that kind of money to make something disappear. The world split in two, and it has never fully come back together. What happened next shocked the entire world. In 2002, Michael Jackson was standing on a hotel balcony in Berlin, holding his 9-month-old baby son. And then, in front of hundreds of fans and cameras below, he dangled the baby over the edge. The child's face was covered. The crowd gasped. The cameras kept rolling. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. Every television station on Earth played it on repeat. The image was terrifying. Even his most devoted fans were stunned. Was this a man who had completely lost touch with reality? Was this someone who genuinely did not understand what danger felt like? Michael later apologized. He called it a mistake made in a moment of excitement. But the world had seen it. And you cannot unsee something like that. Behind the fame, there was something much darker. Something very few people saw clearly. Michael Jackson was deeply, profoundly alone. Despite the screaming fans, despite the sold-out stadiums, despite being surrounded by people every hour of every day, he existed in a kind of isolation that most of us will never understand. He could not walk down a street. He could not go to a restaurant. He could not have a normal conversation with a stranger without it becoming a global event. He had been performing since he was a small child, and the machine had never stopped. Not for a single day. People close to him described a man who lived in fear. Fear of the media. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of what the world was turning him into. And then in 2003, a British journalist named Martin Bashir was given access that no reporter had ever been given before. Months inside Michael Jackson's world. And what came out of it was a documentary that destroyed what remained of his public image. Michael was shown holding hands with a young boy named Gavin Arvizo, speaking openly and without shame about sharing his bedroom with children. The world reacted with horror, and within months, new accusations followed. Gavin Arvizo and his family accused Michael of molestation. The case went all the way to trial. The 2005 criminal trial was one of the most watched legal events in history. Prosecutors painted a portrait of a predator who used his wealth and his magic to manipulate children. The defense showed a very different picture. A man of extraordinary sensitivity who was targeted by a family with a history of making false accusations, a family who had already sued a major retail chain, and a comedian over fabricated claims. After 14 weeks, after 85 witnesses, after the world watched and argued and debated every single day, the jury delivered its verdict. Not guilty on all 14 counts. Michael Jackson walked out of that courtroom a free man, but he never walked back into his old life. Something had broken inside him. He retreated. He left America. He rarely appeared in public. He became thinner, more fragile, more ghost-like. The man who had once commanded the attention of billions was now hiding from the world he had conquered. His finances had collapsed. He was reportedly hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. Neverland fell into disrepair. A man who had earned more money than almost any entertainer in history was struggling to hold everything together. In 2009, he announced a comeback. 50 concerts in London, a final chance to show the world who he still was. Rehearsal footage showed flashes of the old brilliance, but people who were close to him said he was terrified, said he felt trapped, said he didn't want to do it but couldn't find a way out. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson was found unresponsive in his Los Angeles home. He was 50 years old. The world stopped. People cried in the streets. Radio stations played only his music. For a brief, strange moment, the entire planet seemed to grieve together. But the mystery was only just beginning. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The drug that killed Michael Jackson was propofol, a powerful anesthetic used in hospitals, never meant to be used as a sleep aid in a private bedroom. Michael had been using it to sleep, had been using it for a long time. how does the most monitored, most documented, most famous human being on Earth end up dying alone in a room, put to sleep like a patient in surgery? The questions never stopped. They are still being asked today. And even in death, the controversy followed him. In 2019, a documentary called Leaving Neverland brought forward two men who claimed Michael had abused them as children. The world erupted again. Radio stations pulled his music. Corporations distanced themselves. The debate returned with a force that felt like it could rewrite history, but others pushed back just as hard. They pointed to inconsistencies in the accuser's stories, court documents, previous sworn testimonies that directly contradicted what was now being claimed. The legal battles continued long after his death. And so here we are, decades after the moonwalk, years after the funeral. The music still plays. The name still sparks arguments at dinner tables, in comment sections, in courtrooms, in quiet conversations between people who are not sure what they believe. Was he a broken child who never found safety in a world that consumed him whole? Was he a manipulator who used his fame as a shield? Was he a victim of one of the most relentless media machines in history? Or was the truth something no clean headline could ever contain? Michael Jackson lived in the space between legend and nightmare, between genius and destruction, between innocence and accusation. And that space is where he still lives today, in the minds of everyone who cannot quite let go. Was Michael Jackson a victim of fame, or the architect of his own downfall? Maybe the most honest answer is the hardest one to accept. Maybe he was both. Maybe that's the part of the story that keeps us coming back. Because we still don't fully know, and perhaps we never will.